Hello, and happy MLK Junior Day. My name is Nefertiti Burton, and I'm the chairperson of the University of Louisville's Department of Theater Arts. Our department is the proud home of the African American Theater Program. In this time of national strife and global upheaval, we reaffirm our commitment to making and teaching theater that contributes to the struggle for an anti-racist and socially just society. We hope that you will become a permanent part of the AATP family. Please share this program and let us know what you would like to see on our stages in the future. Thank you for joining us.
I have a dream. We will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
He chooses to leave his fears behind. Ignore a million doubts bubbling in his mind. He's a master of debate, but he takes pride in being kind. And soon you'll see he has a dream.
Good morning and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thank you for joining us for our virtual presentation this morning. My name is Sydney Edwards and I am the director of the African American Theater Program here at the University of Louisville. Today I'm standing in front of our Playhouse Theater at Freedom Park here right on campus. Even though we can't be together in person this year, we can still celebrate the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In light of all of the many things that have happened over the last year or so, it's more important than ever that we take the time to come together. At this time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Hannah Drake. Hannah Drake is a blogger, activist, public speaker, poet, and author of 10 books. She writes commentary on politics, feminism, and race. Hannah's message is thought-provoking and at times challenging, but Hannah believes that it is in these uncomfortable places that change can take place. Everyone, Hannah Drake.
Today marks the day that many in the nation will observe Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the dedication and sacrifices he made as a civil rights leader and activist. We have heard about Dr. King's legacy of love, peace, and nonviolent resistance. We understand Dr. King's fight for justice and the hardships and weight of racism he felt as he traveled the South fighting for freedom. Yet it was not in the sweltering heat of Mississippi, nor in the jail cells of Alabama. It was not as he walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, not even in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was murdered as he went to fight for sanitation workers after Echo Cole and Robert Walker were not allowed to ride in the garbage truck during bad weather, and both of their bodies were crushed, where Dr. King felt the weight of racism. But it was right here in Louisville, Kentucky, where Dr. King spent several weeks leading open housing demonstrations where he was taunted and stoned in nearly every white area that he encountered. It was here in Louisville that Dr. King said he encountered more hatred than any other city in the Deep South. So while this message is being shared online and hopefully people will watch it across the nation, the very place I feel compelled to start is right here in my old Kentucky home. Like the old folks used to say, sometimes you need to sweep around your own front door. We have seen the uprisings as hundreds of people took to the streets this summer demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. We have heard the cries of no justice, no peace. We were tear gassed, flashbanged, we were arrested, all because we demanded accountability and equity. All because we said, please stop killing us. We have heard many people tell us that they do not understand why we protest. They do not understand that a riot, not an insurrection, is simply the language of the unheard. They would be okay going back to a life of comfort, a life of peace, because they do not understand that true peace is not the absence of tension, It is the presence of justice. So I will not use my time today to detail the important and honorable aspects of Dr. King's life, as countless details are readily available in books, online articles, magazines, videos, documentaries, and museums. Dr. King's impact stretches around the world. After what we have witnessed the last few years, and especially last week, I think it is important that we use today to speak to Dr. King's legacy and where we are going. I recall as a young girl being taught about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was taught about his marching, preaching, and pushing a nation towards freedom. Dr. King was often cast as a docile, peaceful man, in contrast to what some considered a more radical activist during his time, Brother Malcolm X. America has created a Martin Luther King that it can stomach. America's whitewashed Martin Luther King Jr. just enough. When it comes time to speak about race relations, all they do is add the "I have a dream" speech and stare. America is quick to quote Dr. King when they're attempting to put Black America in its place. What all Black America is doing is demanding justice. America often asks, what would Dr. King do? And my response is always the same. Perhaps we would know if you didn't murder him. America severely watered down the message of Dr. King, but let's be reminded, while Dr. King is revered now, let us not forget that when Dr. King died, he had a public disapproval rating of nearly 75%. So before you rush to Google today to search for a quote that you can tweet about Dr. King, I would ask that you look at the totality of his life and his message, and then hold it up to the way that you are living your life. Do not merely quote words that make you feel good, and do not challenge your thinking and actions. Do not tweet quotes that are nothing more than a social media performance, when in actuality, you have done nothing to support the causes that impact Black America. Do not use Dr. King's quotes as a way to check Black America. Do not ask us what would Martin Luther King Jr. do, when it was America that killed him. When you want to tell Black America there's a better way to protest, be reminded that it was Dr. King that said, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation for years now. I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. When you ask Black America, well, it's the law. Be reminded that Dr. King said we should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal. When you ask us why we are fighting for justice, be reminded that Dr. King said oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself. When you are quick to speak about Dr. King's dream, be reminded that it was Dr. King that also said, about 2 years ago now, I stood with many of you who stood there in person and all of you who were there in spirit before the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. As I came to the end of my speech there, I tried to tell the nation about a dream that I had. I must confess to you that this morning, that since that sweltering August afternoon in 1963, my dream has often turned into a nightmare. I've seen my dream shattered as I've walked the streets of Chicago and seen Negroes, young men and women with a sense of utter hopelessness because they can't find any jobs. I've seen my dreams shattered as I've been through Appalachia, and I've seen my white brothers along with Negroes living in poverty. And I am concerned about white poverty as much as I am concerned about Negro poverty. You see, these are the words of Dr. King. When you condemn Black men and women who have fought for this country and still can't find peace and justice in America, remember that Dr. King said so. We have repeatedly faced with the cruel irony of watching Negroes and white boys on TV screens as they kill and die together for a nation that has been unable to seat them together in the same schools. So we watch them in brutal solidarity burning the huts of a poor village. But we realized that they would never live on the same block in Detroit. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor. When you ask us why we are still fighting, not just for justice, but for equity, for everything that this country owes Black people, remember what Dr. King said over 50 years ago, when not much has changed, but 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds itself in exile in our own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. And remember, when you want us to sit down and remain silent and just be content, remember that it was Dr. King that said it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. There will neither be rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. And when you ask Black people why we protest, why my brothers and my sisters are murdered by the police, why we are in the streets, remember that it was Dr. King that said, a man dies when he refuses to stand up for that which is right. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for justice. A man dies when he refuses to take a stand for which is true. So we gonna stand up amid horses. We're going to stand up right here in Alabama amid the billy clubs. We're going to stand up right here in Alabama amid police dogs if they have them. We're going to stand up amid tear gas. We're going to stand up amid anything they can muster up, letting the world know that we are determined to be free. And when you ask why Colin Kaepernick is kneeling, when you ask why college basketball teams are kneeling, and you say that I don't disagree with them, but I just wish the protests were done in a different way. When you ask me to tone down my writing, when you ask me to tone down my voice, remember that it was Dr. King that said, first, I must confess. Over the past few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate that I've come so much to the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens counselors or the KKK, but it is the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal that you seek, but I cannot agree with your direct action, who lives by a mythical concept of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is so much more bewildering than outright rejection. And finally, when you refuse to use your voice and your privilege to challenge racism, when your first response to injustice is not me or not all, remember, Dr. King said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends, and know that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I challenge you on this day, on this Martin Luther King Day, to move beyond, as Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, stated, MLK light. Either we are going to be what we say we are going to be, or we are not. And right here in Kentucky, our fellow Kentuckian Florence Reese said, which side are you on? Or as the good book says, I know your deed, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you would be either one, but just don't be lukewarm. And how long? How long, Kentucky, do you want to remain lukewarm? And you see, this is our problem. America remains lukewarm because America doesn't understand Sabana, which is a Zulu greeting, which means I see you. Not just I physically see you, but I see the humanity in you. I respect you. I value you. You are important to me. When you see people, you don't enter their homes unannounced and shoot them. When you see people, you do not hunt down a Black man and shoot him for jogging in your community. When you see people, you do not shoot them 7 times in the back. When you see people, you do not kill them for walking home carrying Skittles and tea. When you see people, you don't shoot a 12-year-old boy in under a minute. When you see people, you don't put your knee on the neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. When you see people, that is when this world begins to change. And as Dr. King said, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. After all that you have seen last week, last year, tomorrow is today, and we are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is a thing as being too late. Do not let America be too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of man does not remain at the flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in our patches, but time is deaf to every plea. And time marches on. It rushes on over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. Too late. There's an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. The moving finger writes, and having writ writes on, we have still a choice today. Nonviolent coexistence or violent co-annihilation. Now let us begin. Now let us rededicate ourselves to the long and bitter but beautiful struggle for a new world. The choice is ours. And though we might prefer it otherwise, we must choose in this crucial moment of human history, Kentucky and America. The time is now. And it starts with you. Challenge yourself to see people, to see the humanity in people, to value people. Challenge yourself and ask yourself, what are you doing to become the dream that Martin spoke about? That dream is tangible. The dream is the personification of what this nation can be. Not just quotes, not just tweets, but the way you live your life. How are you using your voice to spread a message of peace, love, and compassion? How are you using your wisdom to educate others about racism and injustice? How are you using your privilege and your power to stand up for others? I love Dr. King. Dr. King has left his legacy. Well done. He did his job and he did it well. Now, what are you doing to leave yours? What will your legacy be in this fierce urgency of now? I challenge you today. Don't just speak about the dream. Be the dream. Thank you.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today and for being our keynote speaker. We're so glad that you could be here. Aside from our decision to go virtual this year, the African American Theater Program decided to do something different for MLK Day. We sponsored our very first ever MLK Day Artist Contest. The AATP sent out a call for musicians, poets, visual artists, rappers, dancers, literally anybody that had something to say. And we asked them to create art inspired by the Martin Luther King quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I'm so happy to say that so many people answered the call, of all ages, colors, and creeds. Here are a few of our honorable mentions.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Speak up.
I'm for truth, no matter who tells it. I'm for justice, no matter who it's for or against. Speak up. Without justice, there can be no peace. Speak up.
Racial unrest, systemic inequality, and flat-out injustice needs to be addressed.
At its best, they ignore the bullets, overlook the poverty, disregard the hunger, and claim that the community is stronger.
In areas minorities do not dwell, and yet still we cannot pretend there is no need for individuals who have yet to be freed.
Because these communities still bleed. They still plead. They still seek to just be considered. Trust. This injustice is what's causing the disruptions in your world. And our world? Because I built this place too.
Yeah, but he planted the food, and she labored and carried the bulk of this crew. But yet, woo! We can't even get a say.
It's because you don't look a certain way. Hey, okay. Shh. You're making way too much noise.
Well, it's because of the void. The social injustice and inequality of not being treated fairly.
Whether it's north, south, east, or west, it's more than being stepped over or fired. Nah, bruh. There's way too many deaths for us to rest. So, speak up.
There's way too much focus on who's brown, white, black, red, yellow, or even blue. Because what is your response when injustice is brought to you?
Yeah, what do you say? Better yet, what do you do? Perhaps you should speak up too.
Baby boy, right now, they think you're cute. 6 years old, but truth be told, in 10 years that won't be true. See, I know it's hard to understand that someone would judge you by your skin, but baby, this ain't new. It's just wrapped different. They judge us before we speak. Your facial hair, the clothes you wear, baby, that's all they see. Now that's the true disgrace. That being black predicts your fate. Your chances of dying, getting killed, victimized at disproportionate rates, all the while there's fear on your face. And all the while the gun's on his waist until the gun's in your face. Or his knees on your neck. Or you're safe in your house with no clue that you're next. Or you're leaving the store, headed back to your house, but because your hood's on, you never finish your route. I'm scared. And I'm angry. As you get older, your features start changing. They'll claim your looks, instill fear. And no matter how much education you get, your brown skin will always be considered a threat. When in reality, they're the ones that can seem as bad as it gets. But baby, I never forget. Not the images they show, but the truth that I know. That baby, you're still a king. And no matter what they see, and that same brown skin that makes them run is the same brown skin kissed by the sun, my son. Live, evolve, change, break this curse. 'Cause the injustice that affects us affected our ancestors first. 'Cause even here, in the midst of fear, your face brings hope to my heart, dreams to my mind. As I look in your eyes, maybe now is the time for us to rise.
I'm a leader, I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. I'm a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream for my people and their kids' future. Used to be Michael, but my name is Martin Luther. I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. I'm a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream for my people and their kids' future. Used to be Michael, but my name is Martin Morehouse and did something super spectacular, like got my bachelor's. Underage but upper class I was, I used my platform to reach the public, speaking upper echelon. Civil rights activist in my music, I practice this Clarence Jones. I have a dream that one day that a nation will live up to its creed and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm a leader, I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. I'm a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream for my people and their kids' future. Used to be Michael, but my name is Martin Luther. I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. I'm a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream for my people and their kids' future. Used to be Michael, but my name is Martin. Free at last, thank God Almighty, man, we free at last. Segregation I'm a leader. I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker. I'm a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream for my people and their kids' future. Used to be Michael, but my name is Mylene.
Thank you to all of our contest participants. The judges had a very tough time choosing from all of your wonderful submissions. Before we announce our official winners, I would like to take this time to honor a very special person. Each year, we award a local shining star with our Lift Every Voice Award. To present this year's award, I would like to introduce Miranda Cisneros. Miranda is the technical production manager here in the theater department at U of L, and she serves with the Louisville Area Protest Arrest Support in conjunction with the Bail Project. Everyone, Miranda Cisneros.
My name is Miranda Cisneros, and I'm here to present Shameka Wright-Parrish with the Lift Every Voice Award. This award is given annually to individuals whose creative work promotes positive social change. Shameka is a bail disruptor with the Bail Project organization. She's worked here in the Louisville area as a community and voter empowerment organizer. Shameka serves on the board of the Ann Braden Institute for Social Justice Research Community Council, Coalition for the Homeless Continuum of Care Board, the Sowers of Justice Network, and Louisville Family Justice Advocates, among others. And most recently, she's announced that she'll be running for Louisville mayor. It is an honor to be able to present this award to someone who I have personally watched start and sustain a movement for over 200 days. As someone who has been a part of this movement, I want to give endless thanks to Shameka, not just for myself, but for every voice she's had a hand in lifting. The African American Theater presents this Lift Every Voice Award to Shameka Wright-Parrish.
Good. Well, it's evening now as I do this message. I am just so honored to receive the MLK Lift Every Voice Award. I am just taken back. I'm actually on vacation and I'm relaxing and resting, and remembered that I needed to do this video. I just want to say that people like me, as I look at history and the things I've learned and read about all the major fights and struggles we've had as a people, there's a lot of unsung heroes and sheroes, you know. There's a lot of people who don't get mentioned, people who kept people fed, people whose only job was to transport someone to an event or to an action or from jail, people who just did supply runs. Those are the people who don't get honored. I like to think of myself in this Justice for Breonna Taylor movement as someone who tried to fill in the gaps, and in that process lift all the voices that I could. So the young people, the people who make sandwiches, the seasoned elders, our faith community, our business community, so many have come together to help support us. Today is 215 days at Injustice Square. And my whole idea was setting it up was just like, we needed a base because it was so much injustice. We needed a place to come together and think about how we would get this work done together and what part and what role we play. So I'm honored to receive this award. And I'm blessed and I'm blown away at the same time, because I know so many others went unsung, like Claudette Colvin, who sat on the bus before Rosa Parks, like so many others who've cooked, who've cleaned, who serviced some of our amazing leaders, who went on to glory and to books and to movie deals and to documentaries. But the people who choose to be the worker bees, and I consider myself one of those, are the most valuable parts of the movement, because without those extra pieces, without those people pulling together, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't have the gains that we have. So I honor this award and I give it to all the unsung heroes and sheroes. And I also ask you all to be inspired, to be encouraged, to lift up everyone you can, to give them their flowers and their roses while they're here, to let them know that whatever they do matters. I don't care if they just send an email. I don't care if they give a little kid the shoes they need. I don't care if they just read what happens or if they just share online to keep the message going. All of those roles are important. You all are leaders in your own right. There's different levels of leadership, but I like to speak to the leader in every one of you. I hope that in this work I've done that. I hope that in this lifetime I've done that. And I hope that the work continues, because it's not about one person. It's not about one of us. It's about all of us together. And so I really appreciate this. Thank you for thinking of me. When we think about the work of For Justice for Breonna Taylor and too many more, we think about we get there together. We get there through trust, through community, through love, through honesty, and we keep moving forward. That's something that can't be beat. We take hits, but we can't be beat. Love you all. Thank you.
Miranda, thank you so much for that presentation. Shameka, thank you so much for all you've done and continue to do for the Louisville community. And good luck in your upcoming campaign. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to announce the winners of our MLK Day Artist Contest. In third place, we have Miss Cameron Beamer with a visual art piece entitled Injustice at the Bridge.
Many individuals have experienced injustice in their life at one point or another, where they have been treated unfairly or they've had an undeserved outcome. Injustice can be a source of pain for many people. Because injustice has been a source of pain for so many people, it can create a community or a society that is separated by our differences instead of celebrating them. When a community of people feel divided and that they are not equal, you end up with a country that is not united. A divided and hurt country can lead to a world that is never at peace. For this project, I chose to do a sculpture of the Edmund Pettus Bridge on top of the world because an act of injustice occurred on that bridge. The injustice is shown bleeding down on the world, hitting one part and then fading down the earth as the rest of the world finds out. As the injustice sinks down, people are thinking and they are realizing that their justice, fairness, and even freedom could be taken away. The world becomes a place where people are scared to talk about their opinions, and people who are a little bit different get treated poorly. That may be why people protest and fight for their voice to be heard. As said by Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
In second place, we have Louisville-based artist Chris Eli Black with his spoken word poem entitled, You Call It Freedom.
Hello, my name is Chris Eli Black, and this is a poem I wrote entitled, You Call It Freedom. You call it freedom, as if it is that easily defined. As if there are still not chains tied around our wrist, pistol whip kids on the streets of this city, bleeding, pleading for their lives, while a white cop with a Glock blocks their air ducts. You call it justice. As if a piece of peace should be enough for the next generation to feed off of. The Ohio River is full of the tears of black mothers, their sons smothered by the society that we still deem acceptable, the greatest country on the planet. But we can't keep our kids alive. You call it community. While dividing us farther apart by the minute, driving us into dead ends where our skin becomes a sore stain on the crown of democracy. There is no pandemic greater than the one found in the pit of the human soul, the one called hate. King is dead. So is Malcolm. So what do we do when we have to live life without them, when no leaders seem to lead us to a mountaintop, when any means necessary becomes a lyric to a song we're banned from singing? We've marched since March. And we may live to see May, but today, what do we have? No justice, no peace. Death chants that call out in our nightmares, the fear that stares us in the face. You call it justice, as if it is justified. You call it peace when my people have been left with pennies. You call it love when there's no one else to love. Who do you love? How do you love when your heart is taken away? King is dead, and I don't know. Malcolm is dead, and I don't know. I'm alive, and I don't know. I hope I live long enough to speak this poem. Pray my mother never has to spread my ashes in the fireplace of the Liberty Bell. You call it freedom. I call it feeling. a feeling that this may never end. Thank you.
And finally, our first place winner is Mr. Vincent Gray with his song and music video entitled Black Man.
Life of a black man. What we go through internally and what you see externally are two different things. I can't breathe, but my heart still beats. I stay woke, but I'm always under arrest. To be exact, 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
We've been through adversity, racism my reality. Sometimes I feel like a stranger in a foreign land. So much pain I can't perceive. How can I smile? I cannot breathe. Whatever happened to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? Is it because I'm a black man? Is this about skin color? All I wanted to do is love, but I'm hated by my own brother. Black man, I'm a king, but they think I'm a threat. Black man, no need to fear, cause I'm innocent. Black man, I've got mountains that I've not climbed yet. Get your knee up off my neck. Yeah. Black man, yes, I'm human, sometimes I cry. Black man, I've got a locked bottle up inside. Black man, I can't breathe, always under arrest. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Black man, let's come together, we don't have much time. Some won't get it, they'll get left behind. There's a process of elimination. The cops keep killing me, my own keep killing me. Racism and gentrification. There's a plot to destroy the whole nation. The right questions will provide a solution. Who wrote the Constitution? We need restitution. Is it because I'm a black man? Is this about skin color? All I wanted to do is love, but I'm hated by my own brother. Black man, I'm a king, but they think I'm a threat. Black man, no need to fear, cause I'm innocent. Black man, I've got mountains that I've not climbed yet. Get your knee up off my neck. Yeah. Black man, yes, I'm human, sometimes I cry. Black man, I've got a locked bottle up inside. Black man, I can't breathe, always under arrest. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Black man, breathe. I can't breathe. Breathe. All I wanna do is breathe. Breathe. All I wanna do is breathe. Breathe. Hear my heartbeat. Hear my heartbeat.
Thank you all for joining us for our virtual MLK Day celebration. Please share this video with your family, friends, and professional networks. And as always, follow us on social media at official U of L AATP on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Again, thank you and happy Martin Luther King Day. Be on the lookout for more virtual events from the African American Theater Program, including a Valentine's Day virtual open mic. Enjoy an evening of poetry, songs, and expressions of love by the AATP community and friends. Coming this spring, check out the AATP main stage show entitled Hashtag, When Social Justice and Social Media Collide. Black History Month is right around the corner. Look for details about our Black History Month fundraiser to provide scholarships for the AATP's Graduate Certificate in African American Theater. And last but not least, join our friends at Yoga Jubilee, who are hosting an MLK Day celebration and free yoga retreat all day today. Details at yogajubilee.com.
Yo. You vibing off the lines we recorded on Pro Tools. Smack your lips cause you loving that soul food.
schools teaching that slavery is old news. Meanwhile, my people hang on trees like strange fruit. We've been murdered by cops, neglected by first responders. Rest in power, George Floyd, Eric Gardner. Now it's cool to say that Black Lives Matter. Corporations commandeered the movement just to change their karma. People don't like activists, they like their blackness in nice little packages they send back to Africa when it's acting up. Check the stats on COVID, man, the body count ain't adding up. State of the Union got me satisfied.
I never did